Hello, this is Lisa Russick with the podcast We Are All Psychic. And guess who's back? It's Allana. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. She's got a beautiful background if you're watching, watchers and listeners. This is a video podcast on Spotify and YouTube. Allana, would you like to say hello again to our listeners and watchers?
Hello, listeners and watchers. I'm so happy to be here again. I'm very excited.
You got to answer. You still think we're all psychic?
Of course. Of course. And I think even people that think that they're not, it's just you haven't learned how to pay attention and to understand your abilities.
Yeah,
it's a human, innate, thing that we all got going on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So listeners and watchers, Allana wants to kind of add to the last podcast she did. If you don't know, she's a pretty regular guest in our first couple seasons, and now she's back for more in season 9. Oh, where have you been? And she was talking in the last podcast a lot about animals. And what are you going to teach us today? And what are you going to talk to us about today?
Well, I want to share a couple stories, but also I wanted to give just a kind of a mini, lesson on a basic animal communication and how to connect with your own animals. So your dog, your cat, whatever animals you have within your home. Some people have, like we have a tortoise, and I used to have birds. And so, but we're talking about domestic animals. So just, do a couple of exercises and some just tips, I guess, on how to communicate with your own animals.
I can't wait.
So what that would entail to start is, first of all, you have to have the desire and you have to have the trust that this is something that is real. It's not make-believe. It's a real skill that all of us can learn. And so I think trust is a big part of this. It's like anytime you're learning psychic skills, any type of skills that, are, I guess you can say, where you can prove it, but it's really more of a trust. So, and I don't know how you feel about that, Lisa. Does that feel right? I mean, is that like right?
Well, it's kind of like you can prove it.
Yeah, you can prove it.
Because like if I go to someone who I've never met their pet before, a cat, say, and the cat would tell me something, maybe, and the owner would say, yes, that happens. That's how you can confirm that this animal, I don't know this animal, I don't know this person. I'm going to say this animal likes to eat Temptations catnip fever treats and they want more,
Right.
And then the owner can say, yes, I do feed them that, so you get some validation on it, but still
there it is.
Yourself, how do you get that? I mean, sometimes that can happen to someone and they're still not going to believe it.
Right. Well, yeah, because your logic wants to dismiss it. Yeah. Right. There's like that dismissing it, and putting your logic in there like, oh, yeah, it's just my imagination, which imagination plays a huge part in this, to be honest. Yeah. So, so don't dismiss it is what I'm trying to say. But yes, there's evidential, evidence, right? And what was the other word you said? There was a word you said, like feedback. Right? You did use another word though, but so like when I've worked with people and their animals, and I want feedback, validation, right? That's exactly it.
It helps us.
It does. And with any psychic work, you want the validation to know you're on the right track.
Absolutely.
If it's all a bunch of guesswork and then the other person's not invested and involved, it's I want to know I'm on the right path with you, right? Yeah. And because that's how I help you the best, right? So if I go into a session, I don't necessarily need to know anything about the animal, but if there's a pain point, like if there's a behavior issue or there's a health concern or end of life concern, I'm going to know that that's why I'm there.
Well, Allana, my cat Gandalf, I'm just in the middle of this. My cat Gandalf, I went out of town for 3 days, two nights and 3 days. And when I came back, his belly is just hard as a rock and it's blown out to here. Do you want me to go get him? Maybe he can tell you if I need to take him to the vet. He's acting normally. He's drinking and eating. but his belly is just, it's like out to here, and he's about this big usually. And it's like hard and round like
So
this.
how's his bowel movements? I mean,
He's finally pooping again, but he wasn't, there
okay?
was hardly any poop in the litter box when I got home, but
Okay.
I think he didn't use the bathroom, but he's using
So
it now.
okay. So so have you had a change? Has there been a change in that tummy? Is it starting to maybe not be so hard?
No, not yet.
Okay.
Now there
So
was last night after he used the bathroom, it was,
okay.
but then
Because
not very much. But now today is just,
it's swollen up again.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Because the first thing I got when you were saying that was bowel movement, and that's not all,
That's what I thought. He hadn't had one,
yeah,
or he had
yeah,
constipation or something.
right. So, so that's also, okay. So yes, it's sort of a deduction of, you were gone,
I think he's stressed out, and because he's my little shadow cat. He's my
that's
soul.
right. Yeah.
And I think he got really stressed and overate maybe, but there was hardly any food missing too. It was like they didn't eat much, but it was only 3 days. So I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and so what I would say, because I'm not a vet,
Yeah.
right? I'm not a
You bet.
doctor. But we can say, okay, so let's, think of the things that we can eliminate here, which would be, okay, he was stressed out, which we know is true story.
And
Animals
that
will
always
do that.
upsets my stomach for sure.
And it upsets your stomach. And then
Yeah.
there's that idea too that, and it's really more than idea. There is some, validation to this too, that our animals will take on
They are.
our emotions,
They do.
our health issues.
It's very
And
interesting
that's,
you say that, because I had a roommate who had a dog who was empathic to her. She
yeah,
had a cornea on her eye, I think it
yeah,
was right eye, and the dog ended up getting not a cornea, a cyst on her cornea.
yeah,
And the dog got the same thing. And then she had a kidney
yes,
infection, and the dog got a kidney infection in the same
yes,
kidney.
right.
And when she wasn't home and she was having a bad time, the dog would hide under the bed. And if she was out and having a good time, the dog would be out and around with me, Dusty.
Yeah.
So it was magic. They were like,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
me again, dog.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
So before we started recording, we were having a conversation. And I told you about my daughter going into the ER because she had, basically, she was anemic. She had to have 2 blood transfusions. She was in the hospital for 4 days. This was in high school. Okay. So I've had, and not now, but in my lifetime, when I was like 15, again, during pregnancies and then during menopause, I was anemic.
Yeah.
And so my dog Penny became anemic at 5 years old. And she had to have a blood transfusion. And she survived it. She lived to be 16. But, and I think we talked about her the last time. But I always thought that was pretty amazing. You could call it whatever you want to call it. You can call it coincidence, but I see that differently, that it made sense to me that she would have that situation. I had a call from a client who was curious about a cat that was a relative of hers cat, and the person was diagnosed with COVID, and so wasn't doing well. And this is a couple years ago now. And but the cat that was healthy was all of a sudden was sick, was starting to get sick, and was showing symptoms the same as the owner. So they took the cat to the vet. And to be honest, I had sort of heard about this, but this was the first time that it was reported to me that I had evidence of the cat had COVID. So,
I've never seen a cat with COVID.
So they wanted me to connect with the cat to see what was going on with the cat, right? So the cat was bonded with another cat, and he was a little older. But what I got when I made the connection with the cat was that he took on the illness so that his person could get better.
That's very interesting, because I have big stomach problems, and I just found a supplement that's really helping me out. And I come home and his stomach's big.
Yeah.
I found the solution on my trip.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm going to say, and I'm really kind of glad we're talking about this, because this is something that in the animal communication community that we have found that this is something that happens, especially with our domestic animals, because they are living with us.
Yeah.
And because they're empathic, animals are empathic.
Oh gosh.
All of them, they're empathic. Their senses are full blown. We can't even imagine what they feel. I mean, we
No, and
know that, right? We know that
their
their senses are more heightened than ours. We know this.
ears are so sensitive.
But everything, like dogs, their first major, where they come from is smell.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not sure about cats because
It's
I
got
just
strong
don't.
smell too, but not quite.
Yeah,
They don't do
yeah,
anything like dogs do with it.
yeah. And dogs are completely, smell first, then I believe hearing, and then sight.
I
But
think
they
cats
are,
it's sight and then smell, sight and hearing and then smell probably.
yeah. So, because they live with us and their whole world is, within this domesticated world of ours, and then routine, right? They're all about routine. They know when they're going to get fed. They can't wake up the same time in the mornings, right? And so when something is off, then they feel it. And then if you're off and you've got some sort of illness, or, you know, you've moved, someone's died. I
Or
mean,
even
there's so
a
many
pet,
things.
a pet leaves the family sometimes.
Pet leaves the family. There's all kinds of things that happen. You bring in a new roommate,
Yeah.
right? There's changes that happen. And so we tend to dismiss, we think that they're just sort of there, but we forget they are a living creature that has, this is their world too.
Yes.
Right. And then if we come in, like we may have talked about this before in the last one, but being mindful of your energy. If you've had a bad day and you walk in the house and you're just that animal's going to go running,
Yeah.
right? Or they're going to go, what's happening? So they're very sensitive.
I always
So
tell them if I'm upset, I'll come home and tell them this happened.
yeah. Yeah.
They do
And
know.
then,
They'll
yeah. And,
understand.
the other thing too, that is important, that has been addressed many times with people having like behavior problems with their, let's say, dogs. When you leave the house, okay, you're going to go to work, and then the dog has anxiety, right? Or separation anxiety, whatever. Or does some behavior thing that they don't do while you're there, but while you're gone, they're doing. And some people have cameras, right? So they see their dog doing this thing. What I would suggest that you do is you tell your dog that you're leaving and you will be back.
Yes.
And
I
in
always do that with my cats. I tell them
right?
when and everything.
Yes.
2 nights and 3 days, stuff like that,
Yeah.
or 2 hours maybe. Or
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I am coming back, guard the castle, whatever. And that seems to help
It does.
because we don't, we know that dogs they get a vocabulary from us, right? Like if you say, like with my dog, if I say, let's go for a walk, and he's just 10 months old, he knows what that is.
I kind of
Right.
think they know every word.
I think they know. You're right.
I think they have
if it's
no
not,
problem understanding us.
right. And so, there's some goofy videos I've seen, and I say goofy, that's kind of a word I use. But where these people have like these buttons, right, where the dogs can push a button and they're actually making sentences. And then you go, okay, is that real? Like, are we making that up? That it's whatever. But it's pretty amazing if you watch that, because they are communicating. Now, did they, how do they learn that? Maybe it's not the words necessarily. There might even be a sound that button makes, whatever it is that they've learned, that this is how this person will understand my needs, right?
Yeah.
So there could be a behavior that happens. There could be, whatever it is. So the whole point here is pay attention to your pet and understand that you are its world. And so whatever's going on with you goes on with that animal. So if there's behavior issues, and I know we addressed this before, you need to check in on yourself, your household, what's going on. Have you been, anxious? Are you getting a new job? Do they know that you're going to be leaving? There's definitely a difference between what my son was here visiting and his dog. They were getting ready to leave to go back home. So they're packing up, and the dog's like so excited. She knows she's getting in the car and she's going home. But when they're leaving and they're packing differently, and she's not going, she knows it. And so she'll go upstairs and go sit in her kind of mopey on her bed.
That's what Gandalf did when I started packing for my weekend trip.
Because they know they're not going, and
he went under the bed.
Yeah.
Not even when
That's
I
right.
left.
And we just think it's like, oh, cute
No, I
or
didn't think it was
whatever.
cute. It felt terrible.
No,
I didn't want to
I know.
leave. I
Right.
was like, come out again. I'm
So,
sorry. Although,
so I guess the whole point here too is if you really care about your animal, you will pay attention to these things and you will treat them with the dignity,
kindness.
respect, and and
Yeah.
treating them as a sentient being.
As an equal, like an
As
equal.
it, yeah,
You love them
absolutely.
anyway, aren't they? Your
Yeah,
equal.
right, right. And
You love? I love my animals more than most people.
yeah. Now here's something I had made a few notes, and this is something that, remember I told you about there was the multi-species symposium
Yes.
at a university in Canada. And so one of the things that was a theme that ran through both years of the symposium was the misbelief of humans that we are superior over animals.
I agree with that.
Right? It's a misbelief.
I was in West Tennessee and I was in a small town and I went to a pig slaughter place. It was just out there. We were walking around and we found this pig slaughter like warehouse. It was just packed full of pigs about to be slaughtered. And I looked in there and I'm looking at all the pig faces and they're all looking up at me and they knew.
Oh yeah.
They knew exactly what was going
Yeah.
on. And they didn't
That's
even
right.
ask me to help them. They're just
Because that's part of their culture, I
yeah.
guess, right? This is something that they were born into. I know there's been some stories in the last few years about escapees, like cattle
Yeah.
escaping from the truck that's taking them to the slaughterhouse, right?
That cow.
And then getting adopted by
Yeah.
the, friendly barn, whatever, that's going to take them in because, man, they went through a lot to escape, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, animals definitely know what's going on. And so when we are wanting to communicate, have some communication with the animal, one of the things that we need to understand is that they're connecting with us all the time, and it's through telepathy, right? So we had addressed like empathic, but that's the mind to mind, heart to heart, energy to energy. That's the communication that's happening. Also, they pay attention to our body language and all of it. So
the pets. The pets.
yeah, that's
pets.
right. And and then
pet the pet.
right. And what energy are you flowing from your hand to them? You're a Reiki master. I'm a Reiki master.
I do Reiki young. I did a lot of Reiki,
right?
Tommy, and that's when it went down last night.
Yeah,
I did it again today, but he didn't want it, so I just did it first.
Right, and so you honor that. They don't want it. It's just like a human. If they don't want that, whatever, then
this was weird because he didn't like Reiki for a couple of years, and now he does. And this, when I called like last night, when I said, Gandalf, do you want some Reiki for your belly? He came right up and sat on me.
Yeah, and more than likely it's because he knows obviously Reiki. He knows Reiki, and it's probably helped him before. So, it's like I told you about my dog Penny that, I helped heal her with Reiki, and she then knew the power in it. And then throughout her years of her life, after she recovered from her autoimmune situation, she wanted to be in the room with me when I would flow Reiki. She would sit very quietly and just be in the presence of it.
Yeah.
And one of the things about doing, especially Reiki with animals, and I'm going to say animal communication too, because I'm going to ask permission of that animal. It may not be out loud. It doesn't have to be, but I'm going to ask permission. Same thing with Reiki. You're asking permission.
That's right.
And the animal is in charge of the session. It's not like I'm in charge. I'm the facilitator. That's it. Exactly. So, right. And I'm not necessarily needing, like you're addressing tummy because you know that there's a tummy issue going on. But if I don't know really what's going on, or I'm just doing general healing, or I'm going to do a scan of the body, I'm going to just start holding the flow and then just start doing a scan. Now, let's say the animal has a tummy issue, whatever, they might position themselves in my flow to where the tummy is exposed, right?
Yes, Gandalf did that.
Yeah. And then, so then I just flow it, let it, and then when they're done, they might move. and
Yes.
be done,
A lot of
right?
times I'll move my hands as I do it, but sometimes it just needs a lot more in one place. Like the
Yeah.
tummy, the belly wanted that.
Yeah.
But
And
the
I
rest
think,
of him wanted just flow through.
yeah, exactly. And so, yeah, the way that I practice is I just, keep the open flow, and I might move and do hand positions. I don't have to touch the animal. And I think we talked about this before too. Distance work is just as
It
powerful
is.
as being in person. So I still do the same motions. I still go through a scan of the body, so with animal communication, you can sort of do the same thing. You start with, okay, so let's just start with some basics. The main thing that you would want to do as the, guardian, caretaker, parent of the animal is you want to get yourself in a relaxed situation. Okay, so you're either sitting down or you're outside or wherever you are, whatever works for you. A relax where you're relaxed and you want to be grounded. You want to ground yourself. And also, so there's a heart connection meditation that I learned from my first Reiki teacher that was so beautiful, or my first animal communication teacher that was so simple. And so I'm going to share it, a
Okay.
short version of it. Anything that feels comfortable to each individual is what you can practice to get yourself in a quiet, relaxed, meditative state, because this is how we can listen, right? We pay attention, we're tuned in, we're grounded. You can't have your television on or plugged in, or have a bunch. I mean, you can, like, I've been in convention centers and I've been able to do Reiki.
Yeah.
I've been with a bunch of people, been able to connect with animals. So it's possible, but I
It's not
still do
easy.
the right, but I still do the work to get myself in a meditative state. It might even be something as simple as taking a nice deep breath. I like doing this that I'm doing, and then just feel it, get to that place where I'm now. Taking that nice deep breath, holding it in for a moment, and letting it out. Taking another deep breath, holding it for a moment, and letting it out. So I might repeat that a few times to where I feel like I'm calming myself down and my energy feels a little more balanced. I mean, you can hear it in my voice. It doesn't take a lot for me to get into that space. I can get into that space pretty easy.
I can too.
But so you can either do that, which is super simple. Take off your shoes, whatever. But this heart connection, it's Mother Earth, Father Sky. So you want to take your deep breaths, you want to relax your shoulders, and you want to picture. Now you can be sitting for this, or you can be standing, but you can be sitting, or you can be even laying down. But the visual of roots growing out from your feet and going into the ground. You can go as deep as you want to go, or as shallow as you want to go. And imagine that for a moment, where the roots are headed. And then maybe get to a place where you sort of anchor in a little bit. Anchor your roots in. And then at the same time, imagine that your hands reaching up to the sky is like a tree. So your tree branches are now bringing in the energy from the universe, from the environment around you, the air, that your branches, your arms are bringing in that energy. So once you feel that connection, you're now connecting to the sky, you're connecting to the earth. You want to bring them simultaneously to your heart and allow that to, breathe it in, feel the mingling of the two. And then now, once that feels right, then allow that energy to swirl and fill up your whole body. And as I'm doing this, I can feel my hands expanding. So I'm bringing it down to my fingertips. It's filling up my head. It's filling up my belly. It's filling up my legs. and it's filling me up and also expanding outside of me. So this would be my aura. This is my energy outside of my body. I'm breathing that in. I'm really feeling it. I'm holding it in for a moment. And I can either stay in this state of holding it in, or I can let it go. I kind of like to let it go. Once it has filled me up, I don't really have a need for it. I can let it go. And now I'm ready for the communication.
Okay. That's great.
So again, whatever feels right for you, but that's a very simple connection. So now, again, you don't have to be holding your pet. Your pet can be with you in the room or not.
They can be in another state. When I was in Alabama, I would kind of try to tap in on my cats.
Mm-hmm.
And they would send me a message, we're okay. So, because I didn't have to check on them. I don't know anyone in Nashville. So it was only a couple days that I'd done that before, when no one can check on them. I just lost my train of thought. You've got me in such a...
I know, right?
Did all the stuff you did, and I'm in this relaxed.
I know. It feels very flowy.
I think I'm going to go ask Gandalf. I think it's a good play. Do you have anything else you wanted to teach the listeners? Because I feel like trying this on Gandalf.
Yeah, you can try it with Gandalf. And so what I was going to say next, and we'll go here and then we can get Gandalf if you want to get him.
Oh, no, I don't want to get him because I don't want to pick him up. I was
okay.
After the podcast. Yeah.
Got it.
I'm still in this good place.
Yeah, this
get back
nice
to it.
Place. Yeah. Yeah. So once you're in this state of where you feel very relaxed and you're open to the idea that communication is real, that you can communicate, you can start a scan, where you're basically just sort of starting from, just kind of, again, you don't have to, touch your animal, but just kind of hold. I like to just sort of hold some energy space and ask some questions.
Yeah.
Ask some questions, is there anything you want me to know? How's your tummy feel? Is there anything about your tummy that you want me to know that I can help you with? There's all kinds of questions. So you can also write these down. And I did
all that with Gandalf. I asked him, and when I push on it, he doesn't hurt him.
Yeah.
That's right. Sign.
Yes. So. Right. So now here's the other thing, and I think we talked about this in our last podcast interview, that was, so when you ask a question, ask a question and then give it a few minutes, ask one at a time, especially if you're, new at it, and then just pay attention to what shows up.
Yeah.
So, and then what will happen is, because of however you receive information, it's going to be words, it's going to be symbols, it's going to be maybe even colors.
Yeah.
It could be anything, and it could happen right away, or it might take some time.
Yes.
But just be patient. Be patient. So, and don't dismiss anything.
Nothing, not one thing.
Because that's what, and I think this 100%, being a psychic, right? That information comes in so many different ways, and sometimes it can come super quick, and it might be something really crazy.
Yes.
Like something just out there where you're like, whoa, what's that about?
Yes.
Right? Think logically, oh, that's nothing. Yeah. Well, you might have missed the whole communication.
Yeah.
So if you've got something that shows up, a symbol of something, whatever, then you just sit with it. If you have a journal, write it in your journal, to have a piece of paper there with you. And a tip too, if you're going to, even if you do a dream journal, let's say, okay, so, right away you've had a dream, you wake up in the morning, you've got a journal next to you, use a pencil. Sometimes pens don't work well, like something, the ink, or you're in a funny position, whatever it is. So a pencil, make sure it's sharpened.
Yeah.
It's just There's just something about that seems to, help. Like if you have a favorite pen, you're good with your pen, great, but just there's something about that.
Yeah.
So
I like to use the recorder on my phone when I wake up because
there you go.
I can't write it all anyway anymore because I type so much.
Perfect.
Yeah.
You're a little more tech savvy, right? A little more tech savvy. Because you can always listen to the recording, right? Yeah. So yes, you could absolutely 100% do that. So then once you get some answers and you maybe have recorded it or you just remember it, and ask a few questions that are pertaining to what it is that, you feel is a situation. But sometimes like I said, I don't even like to address a certain thing. It's just, what do you need me to know? How can I help you? And then wait for the answers, and don't dismiss anything.
Yes.
And so now you've been given some information. And so, what are you going to do with it? How are you going to apply it? And the thing about it is maybe it's confusing. Maybe it's a confusing message because it's not always going to be so clear.
And one thing I've noticed, animals experience colors differently than we do is what I've found out when they tell me a color, especially a spirit guide. My cat, Morgana, spirit guide, she'll be like, it's a brown house. And I'll see it in real life and it's green, like olive green or something. Like we'll have just a little off sometimes.
Right.
From us,
That's right. 100%. It could even be something like I did a communication once with an animal that was lost. And so what I thought was interesting was it was like the first time I'd ever done a lost pets thing.
I don't like doing those. Yeah.
And, well, I know, because it could be.
I can't tell if they're alive or passed away. That's the thing. I can't tell. They feel the same to me.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah. Although I have had experiences with pets that are not in, I can tell that they're in spirit is what happened. Okay. I can tell that they're in spirit. But that also takes a little practice. Yeah. But what I remember about this first time that was a little confusing to me was everything was really big, like tall, like a big tall house and a big tall gate.
Oh, because you're little.
Because I was little. Yeah, because I was seeing through the eyes of the animal. Right? Yeah. And so it was like, this is where I'm at, which was kind of cool. So I was able to get a description, where this animal was at.
Yeah.
So you just have to pay attention and know that, there's a lot of symbolism. It's telepathy. You might get it in different ways, and how that animal's communicating with you. So again, don't try to think through the human lens. Think more that this is just a message and I'll be able to interpret it later.
Yes.
So then when you're done with the communication and you feel like, okay, the session's done, I got what I needed, I feel like I'm good, I ask a couple questions, and just keep it simple. Keep it simple, because that's how you're going to learn. Then maybe you ask different questions the next time, just build on it. So then what you're going to want to do is come back to yourself and now you're going to come back to, the 3D world, right? So you're going to still feel relaxed. You don't have to do anything about it, but you could also just say, I'm ending this session. Close the session so that you now have opened yourself up back to the real world.
Yeah.
And when I say real world, you know what I mean by that.
Yeah.
It's like we're in a meditative state. Now we're closing that and now we're going back into.
Yeah, because we can't go shopping in that meditation. We could. You probably forget some things.
You definitely want to close it down. It's the same thing we do with any kind of, at least for me, any kind of session that I'm doing, if it's a mediumship session, a psychic session, Reiki session, anything, I'm going to close it down and bring our energy back to ourselves. Yes.
Kind of bring the energy.
Yeah, exactly. So that's simple animal communication.
That is just wonderful, Allana.
Right?
That's really helpful. Yes.
Yeah.
Anyone can do that.
Anyone can do that.
The observant listeners and watchers.
That's right. So,
and your animal loves you more than you know.
And they are waiting for us to connect, because there's been times when I made a connection and it's like, blah, 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 blah.
Yes.
They're like, oh my God, I can't believe you made a connection. I need to tell you this and I need to tell you that, and so again, don't dismiss anything, and then you had mentioned, I think the last time, because I just re-listened to our podcast to make sure that I knew what we had talked about last time compared to this time, that animals have humor. The
They
universe is
do. They're silly.
humorous. There is humor in the
They want
universe.
us happy.
They want us
Want us to
happy,
smile and laugh.
and that it's a loving experience, and joyful and peaceful. And yes, nature is metal. There's a lot of stuff that happens in nature that is, very, very,
Horrifying.
horrifying,
For us.
but it's the natural world. It's the natural world. So we can learn a lot, through
We
that.
are the natural world, and we do a
That's
lot of
right.
horrible things too, people,
That's
just like
right.
the animals.
That's right.
But we do wonderful things too, just like the animals. Like
That's
you being on
exactly
my
right.
podcast.
Yeah, thank you.
Where can the listeners find you? Where can they find you? I know we did this already, but we got to do it every podcast.
My website is intuitiveheartstudio.com. So everything is there, how you can connect with me, how to contact me. There's also an appointment calendar there that you can schedule an appointment. So just look through what I got going on. And again, we can work distance. You don't have to be, in my area. And I am in Orange County, California. So if you are local, then yeah, of course we can connect in person. But distance is amazing. It's amazing how that works. But if there's people out there that do prayer and believe in prayer, the power of prayer, you can send it to same thing. So you can send it anywhere.
You can pray. You pray for your animal if you like
Yeah,
that way.
That's right. That's right. So how are we on time, Lisa? Are we good? Do I have time for a story, or are we?
You have time for a story? Of course you do. But let me first, I want to thank my sponsor, Everclear, and we'll wrap it up with a story. First, I'd like to thank Everclear listeners and watchers. Everclear is an advice app and website where you can get advice from psychics and empaths, so you can get the clarity you need to create the life you deserve. And I'm an advisor on Everclear under the name Lisa Russick. And Allana is on there sometimes. Sometimes she disappears and appears, so you can find her on Everclear. Yes. And the app is in the Google Play Store and the Apple Store under Everclear Advice app, I think. And the .com is just everclear.com.
Yeah, excellent. And it's a great platform.
I really think
that it's a great platform. So I just need to plug in a little bit more often. I think it's been calling.
I love your picture on there too. It's so cute.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. So one of the other things about animal communication that I think a lot of people are aware of is spirit animals, totem animals, animals as medicine. And so that's been one of the things for me, since I was very young, is being connected to animals and symbolism of animals. And part of why I do the work I do is because of animals, any of the psychic work and stuff, because of my connection with animals. And so I have some amazing stories about connecting with animals in spirit. But one of them that called to me to share with you today was about connecting with an octopus. And in all animals, I had never even thought about connecting with an octopus.
Is that even an animal? An octopus is just something.
Is that a crazy? They're one of the craziest animals. But smart. If you do a little research on octopus, and so to be honest, it's like I knew things about octopus, but after I had this experience, I did some research and I was just totally blown away.
Yeah.
And there's some beautiful documentaries and books right now about octopus and people's experiences with octopus. So I took a animal communication meditation experience with a lady named P. Horsley in the UK.
Okay.
She's been practicing animal communication for years. Horsley, yeah. P. Horsley, yeah. And so she was doing a guided meditation, and so I this has been a couple years ago now. But I want to say that I was walking in the park and I was listening and completely paying attention. But I was in a walking meditation for this. So what she was trying to do is get us to communicate, connect with an animal that was not an ordinary animal that you would connect. So not your dog, not your cat, something that you've never communicated with. And I didn't have any predetermined anything. And so the first thing that I saw was the top of a sea turtle. So it was if I was in the ocean swimming in the water And there was a sea turtle shell, huge, swimming, and he was leading me down into the ocean. And so I, followed, right?
Yeah.
Well, then he sort of disappeared. And then next thing I know, just sort of out of the blue, there's this huge octopus in front of me. And I was like kind of shocked, to be honest. And it was beautiful colors because, as you may know, octopus are like, they'll change
Oh
color,
yeah. They're like,
blend
what do you call
in.
them?
They're
Yeah.
just amazing.
Indians.
And it's how their body works, right? They,
Yeah.
they can be any color, they can blend in with anything. So this thing was huge. I could see its eyes, and the colors were like purples and pinks and yellows, just this bright colors. But it was highly intimidating, okay, because this thing was big, and its head was like right in front of me, and its arms, because what I've learned about octopus is they've got, the 8 legs, but they're not legs. They've got arms and legs. So there's 4 arms and 4 legs. So
Okay.
its arms, I mean, the whole thing engulfed me.
Oh.
But at first it felt intimidating, like, what is happening? Like, this is crazy. But then it kind of released me, and then it started feeling, my arms, both, at the same time, feeling, I could feel the little suction. And the
Yeah.
information that I got from the octopus was that it was feeling me, and their arms have, these are brains. They have brains in those arms, and they're highly sensitive, and so it was feeling me. And the information I got was it was acknowledging that I was a healer,
Oh.
and that he was acknowledging that and also giving me a healing. And so I just was like, I was still sort of like in shock and kind of, whatever, because it was such an amazing encounter. And, it's in a meditation, but it was
Yeah.
almost like it was
They
real,
are real.
and
Our
the turtle.
imagination, if we imagine something and believe it, it's real.
So the sea turtle led me to the octopus. Okay. So then let's say, so 2 days later, I went to the Orange County Fair, and we were going specifically for a show, a concert. But we like to go because with our concert tickets, we can go look at, we can be part of the fair. So we went early enough to do that. And I like going into the art exhibits
Mm-hmm.
and things like that, right? So we were in the art area, the art exhibit. So there's, paintings, there's photography. So I come around this corner, and right on the end cap is this huge photo of an octopus.
Oh
And I
my
went,
God.
oh, because it was my octopus.
Yeah.
It
Oh,
was
it's
the same
yours?
color. It was like, I couldn't even believe it.
Oh, like
I
you
was
thought that
like,
was just kind of a mythical, like
came around the
magical
corner,
octopus, but that one really
and there it
exists.
was. There it was. And I was like, what the? And the tag said it was taken at the Aquarium of the Pacific, which is in Long Beach, California. And I called my husband over, oh my gosh, come here, because I told him about the meditation. And so I'm like, this is my octopus. This is exactly what I saw, same colors and everything. So the other thing that I kept saying the whole time going to the fair was, I'm not buying anything. I don't need anything.
Did you
There's
come
not
home with an
anything
octopus?
that I'm going to do. Okay. So we start to walk to go back to go to the show, and there's all these little booths and stuff. And there's these people that are there every year, and they've got, like stones and gems and, natural items and carved little figurines. And there were 2 of them there that were little tiny octopus. And so for a moment, and they were only like $6, right? So for the moment, I'm like, oh, and I'm like, nope, I'm not buying it. I don't need anything. I don't want to bring anything home. I'm done. Like I just don't need anything. And so we go see our show, and it's all cool. The show ends by 10. We're walking out to the dark parking lot to go to our car, and it's dark. And I stepped on something and kind of kicked it. And I'm like, what is that? Right. So I bend down to pick this thing up, and I picked it up, and I was like, oh, I couldn't believe it.
No. That was
He was
just
a little
around.
wet and dirty. Somebody dropped him.
You had to come home with an octopus. That octopus was not going to
I
let
was
you
tripped.
not know that this
Look
happened.
how cute this is. He's got a little
It's pink.
face, right? And he's pink. And this is what else he does.
Oh, I want one. That's so bright.
Is
It's
that
just
the
sitting
cutest
there. It
little
was just sitting
thing?
there.
It was on the ground, a little dirty, little wet because he had been probably kicked around the
Of
parking lot. Some
all, I mean,
kid
those
probably
parking lots are huge. How could
Oh,
that happen?
Lisa. Okay, so it happened. So there was three. The first visitation, during the meditation, the picture, and now this guy.
Yeah.
And that's usually my sign that that octopus had something go. I needed to pay attention. I needed to pay attention. And so the next day, I cleaned him up and everything. Excuse me. And I started doing research on octopus, and so I started finding out how amazing they are and reading other people's stories about real, they're divers and they had octopus encounters and this spiritual connection that they felt in those moments like I did. Like it
Yeah.
was the same thing that I had in my with the whole thing, but especially in that meditation.
Yeah.
So I was called to share that story here today because I've got so many
I'm so glad
stories
you
of different
did.
types of
That's a
animals, but
beautiful one.
this one was just
Magical.
absolutely
That's magical
magical.
as all
Yeah.
get out.
Yeah.
I love
Really.
that. Thank you
So
so much, man.
yeah.
Okay. Well, I do want to ask do you have any advice, last minute advice for someone who just connected for the first time? They're doing it. It worked the first time because it will. And they're like, no, 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 no. And they're not going to get any more signs. Let's say it's the only one they get is the inner knowledge that it happened, but they're denying it. How can
Yeah.
I mean, I have that problem a lot. My inner juju, my whole heart, my mind, or whatever, my essence says, this
Yeah.
is truth with that. I can,
Yeah.
and
That's right.
usually like it. And then, I'll say like, no, doubt, 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 doubt. Well, like, I don't know how to
Yeah.
get that doubt out sometimes. And a lot of people don't, like, is this,
Right.
what's a good way to like say, take the doubt and do something with it so it's not in the way?
Right. I think sometimes people experience fear with that as well because it is
Right.
profound and very powerful,
It is.
when you get those
Especially if
types of
you
things
thought of your
happen.
animals as like dumb, and
Right. Right. Or even, I mean, so I think I had said before about, dismissing it with your logical mind,
that's what I meant. Yeah.
so, right. So we're left brain and right brain thinkers, so I think it's your right brain that says art,
Yeah.
mystical, that kind of thing. And your left goes, no, math, science,
Not math.
right?
Real math.
So I think it kind of
Not
depends upon,
imaginary math.
right. So I think it kind of depends upon, your background, your religious beliefs, because that's a huge piece in this. But I think what you want to do, if it's something that you're interested in and you feel that there's some importance and what's a value in having this type of thing, then just give yourself time. Give yourself time
Yes.
to practice it. And like I just shared with you, you can be outside, you can be connecting with a wild animal, a
You lying
tree.
down in bed, just
You
drifting
can
off.
be lying down in bed. It can come in a dream. Like
Yeah.
I have many animal connections in
Me
dreams,
too.
and spirit connections, in dreams.
Yeah.
But if you're wanting to connect with your living animal within your home, it's best to calm yourself down, do some sort of calming exercise in which breathing is the best
It is.
to do it. Give yourself opportunity to do that. Even if you've never done any type of breathing exercises on purpose, practice it and it's amazing.
It is.
And then just trust. That's number one. Trust. Do not dismiss anything. That's why, we had talked about recording it or writing it down, anything that you get. And so even if it doesn't even make sense to you, because it may not make sense to you. That's the thing about the work, this type of work, is it may not make sense. It might make sense later.
Yeah.
You can even look up like what's the symbolic meaning of a flower,
Yes.
a rose, whatever,
meaning, symbolic
a
meaning,
spiritual meaning,
dream meaning, any of those.
any
Yeah.
of that. And then
Metaphysical meaning.
right. And then you do a little bit of research, or like with an animal, if you have an animal encounter, and I'm talking about a wild animal.
Yeah. The animal crosses your path. And when an animal crosses your path, it's usually a shaman signal to pay attention to that animal. Listeners, watchers, we got a lot of tech problems right then, but we are back for wrap up the podcast. Did you have anything you were wanted to finish saying?
Yeah, yes. So if you have an animal encounter, wild animal encounter, a bird flies in front of you, whatever it is, you got something going on, squirrels keep showing up, you want to know about the animal. It doesn't have to be the spiritual meaning. It can be, what's the behavior of squirrels? What do they do? How does this pertain to me? So like
they drive my dad crazy. That's their job. Squirrels.
Yeah.
They drive gardeners crazy everywhere.
Yes. But they also gather, right? They gather, they store, they take care of their young. What species do they belong to? And so, you're basically getting to know the animal, and that will give you a lot of meaning as well. This isn't always spiritual. It's more,
can be practical advice.
And what's the meaning? What is the characteristics of this animal? What do they bring to the table that can help you? That what? Does this make sense? What I'm saying?
Yeah, like the animal medicine. What medicine are they offering us to get through what we're going through? And they will. Right. They will. Yeah. That's when those random ones happen, when we really need it, a sign or something.
Yeah. I think. Right. So why did you see an eagle? That just flew, whatever. What is up with that? What do eagles do? First of all, they were extinct for a while, or not extinct, but they were on they were pretty close to it.
Alan.
Back, so I guess what I'm trying to say here is that open up your mind to the fact that you've got all kinds of resources to help you understand why this animal is in your path, and it could be a live animal, and then you go to the store and you see a stuffed animal, or then you see a sticker on the back of a car and that's that same animal. Now that's 3 times you've seen that animal in one day. So pay attention.
Well, here he is. Come on, Dan. You want to come see Miss Allana? I smell like my blue stuff, so he doesn't like it. Oh, let me see. Can you see his belly? Can you see it? Oh, he just went away.
There he goes. He's like, no.
Well, he doesn't want me. I don't want to pick him up because his belly's so sensitive. But did you see it? It was kind of bulgy. It was a blur. Yeah, the blur. Yeah. But Allana, I kind of want to wrap up the podcast because you're so quiet. I don't know if I'm going to be able to mix this.
Oh, sorry.
But that's okay because we're going to do another one, aren't we?
Yes, we are.
Thank you so much, Allana. And listeners and watchers, I love you. Thank you so much for always watching and listening. And Allana, thank you so much. And come back. Don't leave me again for another 6 seasons without you. All right. Thank you. And thanks, Everclear. Thank you, Allana. Thank you, listeners, watchers. We love you. Peace.
Okay.
Out. Peace.